Ladies and gentlemen, hello from beautiful sunny San Diego. We're in Alexis, Texas. My girlfriend's here, but she doesn't understand that. We'll leave it that way. And I'm actually enjoying this car a bit more than I expected. We have a full review of this vehicle linked down in the description. But today, I want to talk about the issues of hearing advice from those who are further ahead of you, who are successful, and then them wishing they did things differently when they were younger. So oftentimes you'll hear people who, they'll say, yeah, I worked super hard, I wasn't balanced, I gave up my 20s, I grinded so hard, I stressed so much. And if I could do it again, I wouldn't have worked so hard. I could have gotten here without X, Y, and Z. Oh, we're in EV mode. I was wondering why I wasn't pushing or pulling hard enough. I'm gonna go to auto. There we go. There it is. 2GR FXS. 3.5 liter hybrid. It's actually kind of fun. My Amira, by the way, has the 2GR FE engine. Obviously supercharged. But the issue with people who are saying that is if they actually did things significantly differently, they'd have different outcomes. And if they're happy with the outcomes that they had, then it's essentially looking at the past through a very biased set of glasses. Because when I look back to my 20s, I spent my 20s here in San Diego. I went to med school, UCSD, and by the way, I got this watch also here in San Diego. This is the Casio Edifice EF503D1AV. It's like $44.99. I looked it up on Amazon, what I paid for it way back then. And it was like the poor man's Speedmaster, because it kind of looks inspired by the Speedmaster. Subdials are placed differently. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but it was the poor man's Speedmaster, and I wanted a Speedmaster, right? But anyways, I worked really hard during med school here in San Diego. And I don't regret that. I occasionally had some fun here and there. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. I did enjoy the process. I did have fun during the process. But the traditional fun I did do from time to time. I went on a cruise after I finished my step 1. It's like this big board exam. It's the most important test when you're in med school, at least back then before the test became pass-fail. And, when it was time to graduate, I went on a trip as well with some friends. But most of the time, yeah, I was grinding. But there's still a way to enjoy the grind. Grinding and being miserable are not synonymous. You can actually choose to color your story in the way that serves you. So for me, I'm like, cool, it was a really tough time in certain ways, but I pushed my limits. I got to see what I was made of, and I'm very happy with the results. The current entrepreneurship I do now, I could not have done. It would not make sense unless I did what I did in med school, because my main businesses, Med School Insiders and MEM, they're about helping students succeed, about doing well on their standardized tests, on getting into competitive medical schools and residency programs. And if I took med school in a more balanced way, right? A lot of people who are older and successful, oh yeah, I wish I was more balanced back then. Well, if I was more balanced, I probably wouldn't have had the same level of success. And therefore, when I go and tell people, hey, here's how you do X, Y, and Z, 2 issues. Number 1, the quality of my insights would suffer because I learned so much and passed on so much in my videos now on Med School Insiders and on the content and our services because I learned these things the hard way. And then secondly, people would also look at me and be like, well, dude, who are you to give advice? You went to, you barely got into med school and you weren't that much of a hotshot. You didn't score well on step 1. And like, if people don't see that you achieve the results that they aspire to, then who are you? Like, you're not an expert then. Which, by the way, is a whole other issue that you see in the medical school tutoring and admission space. People that are like, hey, I'm a doctor, I'm an expert, I can tell you stuff. It's like, bro, like, not everyone who becomes a doctor should be giving advice on how to succeed in med school, but that's a whole nother story. So what I'm trying to get at here is don't fall victim to the really biased takes that a lot of older successful people have. Because when you're older, when you're more successful, you have that wisdom, you have a completely different view of your life. And you can look back and say, yeah, I didn't have to do those things. But if we're being truly honest with ourselves, we probably did have to do a lot of those things to get the results that we wanted. Yes, I did have to work really hard and give up a lot of free time and fun and sometimes sacrifice my sleep when it was necessary, but still focus on being disciplined with my sleep, still focus on being disciplined with my exercise, still focus on the things that are challenging. And yeah, I stressed about certain things here and there, absolutely. But I don't regret that. I don't think that I should have done things differently. I think that was a chapter in my life. I embraced it. I'm grateful for it. And now it's taught me lessons in the future. So not just giving me that foundation for my current businesses, but teaching me how to manage time much better. You know, once I achieved a higher level of efficiency and productivity, I could then dial it back a little bit and say, hey, I don't need to be at that level anymore, but I can still operate at 80% of that comfortably because I've pushed the red line. I've held it at, 9,000 RPM for a long period of time before, but now I can operate at 6,000 or 7,000 comfortably. Whereas if I never had that phase of pushing it to 9K to the red line and I only ever went to 5K, then going to 7K would feel like it was the red line. It would feel so much more challenging, if that makes sense. Power, baby. Ooh, can we keep up with the EV, the i4? Not bad, not bad. All right, so the first thing being, those who are successful, they have a lot of wisdom to give you. They have a lot of insight, but keep in mind there is this human tendency, this fallacy, this bias of looking back and saying, hey, I wish I did things differently because now I'm successful, but oh man, I'm so much more chill and zen and whatever now. It's like, yeah, bro, you are that way because you grinded hard first and now you can afford to be more chill and more zen. You couldn't have done that way back when. That's the first thing. But the second thing that is somewhat related is the over-glorification of entrepreneurship. I do not believe that every single human being needs to be an entrepreneur. It is not for every personality type. There is something nice about going to your 9 to 5, clocking in, clocking out, and then being done with work. When you are an entrepreneur, more often than not, especially in the early stages, early and middle stages, you're gonna be thinking about your business all the time. And for some people, that's exciting and it's fun. For others, it's consuming and stressful. And I've seen actually both sides of it. There are times when I felt the former and there are times when I felt the latter. The times when I have felt the latter is when I feel like I'm not making progress, I'm kind of stuck in place and I'm overwhelmed. And that's actually something that you can solve, by the way. So, I gotta hire more people in these different roles, gotta expand our technologies in this way, and then boom, you're back to growing and improving, and then it becomes exciting again. But everyone has a different priority set. And for me, I derive a lot of satisfaction and meaning and purpose from my work. I don't mind putting in a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into my work because I want to have an impact. I want to look back and say, yeah, I left it all out there on the playing field. I didn't just, sit in my chair and I was like on the sidelines criticizing people, saying they should do this, they should do that. Like, I'm creating content on this channel, on my other channels. I'm, Med School Insiders, MEM. We're doing a lot of things, and that's exciting to me. If I was optimizing for lifestyle, spending my free time with complete control and such, then I probably wouldn't be running multiple different companies and creating so much content, right? When I go on these trips, I went to Japan for 16 nights. It was, actually not just Japan, it was Japan and Hawaii for 16 nights to celebrate my girlfriend's birthday. Also saw the Formula One Grand Prix. There were a lot of days when I spent like 4 or 5 hours in the morning working. And to some people, that's like, oh my God, that's horrible. How could you? That's a ruining a vacation. I was like, no, I kind of like working when I'm traveling at times because I get more focused and intentional. I'm no longer in my regular routine. I'm so precise with every minute because, hey, I'm not in my regular routine and I want to get things done so I can go out and enjoy the city, explore whatever I'm traveling. So there were nights where I just got into the zone, that flow state that's really hard to get into, right? But I get into the flow state, get a lot of stuff done. I go to bed exhausted, wake up, and I'm like, damn, I'm proud of what I've done. I'm proud of the progress we've made on certain projects. But that's not for everyone. A lot of people would be completely frustrated having to work like that on vacation. One of my buddies joined me in Japan, and he was like, oh my God, you're already in Japan. I'm so jealous. I wish I could be there. I'm so tired of work right now. I was like, well, hey man, if it makes you feel any better, I am traveling for a little over 2 weeks, but essentially every day I'm working a little bit. Anywhere from 2 to 5 hours depending on the day. And that's an example of a person who may prefer living the employee life versus doing entrepreneurship life. There's no right or wrong. There's just pros and cons. There's trade-offs. Oh my God, this guy's got into a big ass accident.
Really?
That's why you keep distance, my friends, so that you don't rear end someone. Now, if you're considering entrepreneurship but you're not sure, some guidelines, some principles. This is not a thorough list by any means, but some initial thoughts. If you don't shy away from working long hours, entrepreneurship might be for you. If you find it really exciting to work on new projects, entrepreneurship might be for you. If you drive a lot of work and meaning and satisfaction, that also leans to the way of entrepreneurship. If you hate bureaucracy and doing things a certain way just because, I remember my first ever job, I was a library aide. I was shelving books, and when people came to ask me a question, I would answer them. I said, oh yeah, you can find it over here, over there. And then the librarians got mad at me. They said, hey, you can't do that. You're supposed to just reroute them to the librarian desk. I was like, okay, cool. So then I started wearing headphones and listening to music because people shouldn't be asking me anyways. And then I got in trouble for that too, because you got to make sure that you can talk to the people. Okay, cool. So then I would take one out so that I could still hear people. And then they got mad at me still. So I was like, okay, this kind of stuff just bothers me because it's just nonsensical to me as a 16-year-old at the time, right? And same thing actually in the hospital when I was doing plastic surgery. In residency, there's just so many things you have to do just because. Even though it doesn't make sense for you to do it, it's not relevant to your future training as an attending physician, a lot of issues, but you just got to do it. So those things bothered me a lot, and I think people that want to do it their own way, that have strong beliefs as to how something should or should not be done. The cool thing with entrepreneurship is that you're your own boss. And sure, you need to still operate within the limitations and the confines of the system and business law and taxes and yada yada, but you also have a lot more control than you ever would as an employee. So my friends, in summary, if you're in that season in your life where you have to grind it out, you're working really hard, it's okay to accept that. You don't have to resist. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to say, oh man, I got to figure out a way to not work so hard because X, Y, and Z successful person told me they shouldn't have worked as hard when they were younger. I'd say embrace it, learn it, enjoy it, because there is some level of enjoyment and satisfaction you get, some self-growth, some development that happens when you're in that phase. And I look very fondly back on my late teens and throughout my 20s because that was the phase for me. It was cool. I learned a lot, whether it's entrepreneurship or studying or just taking self-development courses and reading certain books and helping me become more introspective and deal with my own nonsense and bullshit, because we all have some nonsense and bullshit. Anyway, my friends, do you agree? Do you disagree? I actually like the thoughtful discourse that we can sometimes have in the comments when people say, hey, good points, but disagree with this thing for these reasons, because then I'm learning too. So I really appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't already, my friends. Much love. See you in the next one.